Emily had always been the kind of woman people described with comforting phrases. She's always so strong. Emily can handle anything. She's the girl who always smiles. In Seattle's city of endless rain, warm coffee shops, and evenings that stretched longer than dawn, Emily existed like a soft glow behind a clouded sky. But no one knew that the light inside her was slowly fading. Her small apartment on the 12th floor overlooked Pike Street, a place alive with people and noise. Every morning, she used to pull open the curtains, brew a cup of coffee, and let the faint Seattle light wash over her. But lately, it didn't matter if the sun rose or not. Inside her, it was always dark. The apartment reflected her mind. A few unwashed coffee mugs, unopened bills on the counter, a journal with hopeful words she no longer believed in. And in the middle of all the quiet chaos sat Emily, curled under a gray blanket, staring blankly out the window. She didn't know when it began. Work pressure? Loneliness? Or years of exhaustion finally catching up? Depression didn't fall like a storm. It dripped slowly, quietly until it soaked everything. The morning she couldn't get up. That morning Emily woke at 10 a.m., 3 hours later than usual. Her alarm had rung, but she didn't feel the strength to care. Her phone buzzed. "Boss, Emily, I need the report by noon." She saw the notification but didn't open it. Her eyes stung, not from tears she hadn't cried in weeks, but from a heaviness she couldn't name. "Just get up," she whispered to herself, but her body stayed still, pinned by an invisible weight. Every attempt to sit up came with a voice in her mind. Nothing matters. Finally, she forced herself off the bed, dragging the blanket with her as if it were the last shield she had. In the bathroom, she stared at her reflection. Pale skin, messy hair, dark circles carved under tired eyes. She lifted a hand to the mirror. "Emily, what's happening to you?" The reflection didn't answer. A life losing color. At work, Emily used to be the sunshine of the office, the one who left encouraging notes on desks, the one who brought flowers, the one who greeted everyone like they mattered. But slowly, small things changed. Every email felt like pressure. Every meeting became something to survive. Every deadline rang like an alarm she couldn't silence. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't want to be a burden or seem weak. So she swallowed everything. And the silence swallowed her back. A rainy afternoon and a phone call from Mom. It was raining again, Seattle rain, steady and soft. Emily sat by the window, laptop open but untouched. Her mind felt like fog. Her phone buzzed. "Mom," calling. She hesitated, then answered. "Hi, sweetheart, how are you?" "I'm fine, Mom. You sound tired. Have you been crying?" Emily blinked. A single tear slid down her cheek. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet fall. "No, I'm okay, just tired." "Emily, tell me the truth." Her mother's voice was gentle enough to crack something inside her. Emily broke. She didn't sob, she didn't have the energy for that. She just let the tears fall silently. "Mom, I don't know what's wrong with me." "Oh, honey," her mother whispered. "You're not alone. You hear me? Whatever it is, we'll get through it. I'm right here." Those words felt like a hand reaching into the dark, pulling her up. Even if only a little. An unexpected knock at the door. That evening, as Emily sat alone in the dim living room, there was a soft knock. It was Daniel, her neighbor and close friend, the one who cared for her more than she ever realized. "I brought some soup. You didn't answer my texts and I got worried." Emily opened the door halfway. Her apartment was dark, silent. Her eyes were red. Daniel looked around, then at her, not judging, just concerned. "Do you want to talk?" he asked gently. "You don't have to. I can just sit here with you. You don't have to be alone." Those words were warmer than the soup in his hands. Emily didn't speak. She just nodded and let him in. He placed the soup on the table, turned on a soft lamp, and sat beside her close enough to feel safe, far enough to not overwhelm her. They said nothing for several minutes. And surprisingly, that was exactly what she needed. Finally, Emily whispered, "Daniel, I'm really tired." He didn't ask why. He didn't tell her to cheer up. He didn't lecture. He simply placed a gentle hand on her back and said, "I know. I'm here." For the first time in months, Emily felt companionship in her silent battle, a small flicker of light. That night, for reasons she couldn't name, Emily fell asleep earlier than usual, and in her dreams, she stood on a beach, wind pushing against her, but she remained standing. When she woke, Seattle's sky was gray but softer than before. She placed a trembling hand on her chest. Her heart was still beating slow, fragile, but alive. She reached for her neglected journal and opened it. She wrote one simple sentence. I want to live. Not a loud declaration, not a dramatic rebirth, just a flicker, a tiny flame in the dark. But sometimes, a small flame is enough to begin a new chapter, even when the war inside you still rages on. The morning after Emily wrote I want to live, she woke with a strange mixture of exhaustion and clarity. Her body felt heavy, but her mind felt awake in a way it hadn't for months. The gray Seattle light seeped through the curtains like a cautious visitor. She sat up slowly. Her chest ached with a familiar dullness, but there was something else beneath it. A whisper, a tremor, a thread she could hold on to. She didn't know how long it would last, but she held it anyway. Her first step forward, Emily walked to the kitchen, opened the blinds, and let the sky flood her apartment. The room still looked messy. The mugs were still unwashed. The bills still sat unopened. But today, she didn't look away. She picked up one cup, then another, then a third. The sink clinked softly as if encouraging her. It wasn't much, but for someone who had felt like a ghost in her own life, it was a beginning. After washing the dishes, she made herself a cup of warm tea instead of coffee. She held it in both hands and stared at the quiet steam rising. For the first time in a long while, she whispered to herself, I did something today. Work, and the weight she carried. She opened her laptop. Emails flooded her screen like waves she wasn't ready to swim in. Boss, Emily, we need to talk tomorrow morning. Her stomach twisted. Those words could mean anything, but she feared she already knew. She shut her eyes. Her heartbeat stuttered, faster, then faster. Her mind whispered, You're failing. You're falling behind. They're disappointed in you. She let the thoughts run for a moment. Then she placed a hand on her chest and breathed deeply. You're here, she murmured. You're still here. It wasn't confidence. It was survival. A message from Daniel. At 11 am. Her phone buzzed. Daniel, checking on you. I'm making lunch, want some? Emily stared at the message for almost a minute. Her first instinct was to say no, to retreat, to hide. But then she thought of last night. How he sat beside her without asking her to be okay. She typed slowly. Emily, yes, thank you. A few minutes later, he arrived carrying a small container of pasta, still warm. Daniel didn't step inside this time. He just handed it to her with a soft smile. You don't have to talk, he said. Just eat and rest. Something in the way he said it, gentle, patient, unquestioning, made her chest tighten in a way that felt almost like hope. Emily whispered, Thank you. Daniel nodded once, then walked away, leaving a quiet warmth behind. The afternoon, she broke again. It happened suddenly. She was eating. The pasta tasted comforting. The room was quiet. Everything was fine. And then, a single thought hit her like a cold wave. What if I never get better? Her fork slipped from her hand. Tears pricked hotly at the corners of her eyes. She curled into herself on the couch, hugging a pillow like a lifeline. I'm trying, she whispered. I'm trying so hard. The tears came silently, rolling down her cheeks and soaking into the fabric. It wasn't like the dramatic breakdowns seen in movies. It was quieter, more painful, the kind of breaking that happens slowly, until you suddenly realize you're in pieces. A letter she never sent. When the tears dried, Emily wiped her face, sat up, and opened her journal. But instead of writing a daily entry, she began writing a letter. A letter no one would ever see. Dear whoever is listening, I'm scared. Every day feels like walking through fog. Some days I feel nothing at all. Some days everything hurts. I miss the version of me who used to laugh without thinking. I miss the girl who believed the world was beautiful. She paused, her hand trembling. But today, I washed the dishes. I opened the curtains. I ate lunch. Maybe tiny things matter. Maybe if I keep collecting them, I'll find myself again. She closed the journal softly, like protecting a fragile secret. The softest kind of sunset. That evening, Seattle's sky surprised her. Instead of its usual gray, the clouds opened slightly, revealing a soft trail of pink and gold. Emily stood by the window, the blanket around her shoulders, watching the light fade. She whispered, It's beautiful, almost afraid the sky would take it back if she spoke too loudly. For a moment, she felt something warm in her chest. Not joy, but something close to it. Hope, a small, trembling kind of hope. She didn't know if it would last, but she didn't push it away. Before she fell asleep, Emily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her mother. She thought about Daniel. She thought about the dishes she washed and the letters she wrote. Her mind was still heavy. Her heart was still tired. But the darkness was no longer silent. Somewhere inside, a faint light was flickering, weak but alive. She whispered into the quiet room, "Maybe tomorrow will hurt less." Then, finally, she closed her eyes and let sleep carry her away, into another night she hoped she would survive. The next morning, Emily woke to the soft hum of rain brushing against her window. It was almost comforting, a sound she once loved, but had become numb to in recent months. She lay still for a moment, listening, not thinking, not judging herself, just listening. For the first time in a while, the world didn't feel like it was pressing down on her chest. It wasn't peace, but it wasn't pain either. Something in between, a quiet space where she could breathe. A small, unexpected smile. Emily shuffled into the kitchen, wrapped in her gray blanket like a shield. When she opened the fridge, she found the sticky note Daniel had left last night. "Eat, please." A simple reminder, a tiny yellow square of care. And somehow, Emily smiled. A tiny, tired smile, but real. She whispered into the empty room, "Thank you." It had been weeks since she'd smiled at anything. She held that moment like a fragile glass ornament. It was small, but it was hers. The outside world. Around noon, Emily forced herself to change into jeans and a sweater. Leaving the apartment felt like stepping into a world she no longer belonged to. The hallway felt too quiet, the elevator too empty, the city too loud. But she kept walking. Down the street, past the cafe she used to visit, past the bookstore where she once spent hours, past people who didn't know she was holding herself together with invisible thread. Seattle smelled like wet pavement and roasted coffee beans. It reminded her of a life she used to enjoy. A life that felt so far away. Her steps trembled, but she didn't stop. The moment her body spoke before her mind. At the street corner, waiting for the light to turn green, Emily suddenly felt dizzy. It hit her fast, like a wave of cold air. Thick and sharp, her breathing turned shallow. Her vision blurred at the edges. A panic attack. Right there on the sidewalk, surrounded by strangers. Her hands shook. Her chest tightened. Her knees weakened. She whispered, "No, not here. Please not here." But her body wasn't listening. The world felt like it was collapsing around her. Daniel appears again. A hand touched her shoulder. Warm, steady, grounding. She turned, and there he was. Daniel, holding an umbrella, eyes full of concern. "Emily? Hey. It's okay. Breathe. I'm here." She didn't ask how he found her. Maybe he had been on his way home. Maybe luck put him there. Maybe the universe knew she needed someone. Her breaths came out sharp and broken. Daniel gently guided her to a nearby bench under an awning, shielding her from the rain. "Look at me," he said softly. "You're okay. Just breathe with me. In and out. Slow, like this." He breathed slowly until she matched his rhythm. Her hands gradually stopped shaking. A few minutes later, she leaned into him exhausted, fragile, ashamed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "Don't apologize. You're not wrong for feeling. You're human." His voice was the kind that made her chest loosen, the kind that made her want to cry and heal at the same time. The walk home, Daniel didn't ask questions, didn't pry, didn't judge. He simply walked beside her in the rain, holding the umbrella for both of them, as if she were something precious. Emily noticed the way he kept matching his steps to hers, slow, careful, patient. It had been a long time since anyone had walked with her instead of walking ahead of her. When they reached her apartment door, she whispered, "Thank you for showing up, again." Daniel smiled gently. "I'll always show up, Emily." Her heart skipped, just a tiny trembling beat. Something warm, something dangerous, something she didn't feel ready to name. The night she finally felt something. Later that night, after a warm shower and a few deep breaths, Emily sat at her window watching rain collect on the glass. She pressed her fingers to the cold surface. "I forgot what it feels like," she murmured to herself. To smile, to breathe, to feel comfort, to lean on someone. She realized she had spent months shutting down every emotion, because feeling nothing felt safer than feeling everything. But today, she felt fear. She felt relief. She felt gratitude. She even felt a small spark of affection for Daniel she wasn't ready to face. These feelings didn't fix her. They didn't pull her out of depression. But they reminded her she was still alive, and that mattered. She whispered into the dark, "I'm still here." For the first time in a long time, the words didn't sound like a question. They sounded like the beginning of an answer. Before sleep took her, Emily curled up in bed, her thoughts softer than usual. She thought about the panic attack, about Daniel, about the smile she didn't expect, about the way the rain looked on the window tonight, less heavy, more gentle. Before her eyes closed, she whispered, "Maybe. I'm not as alone as I thought." And then she finally slept. Not peacefully, not perfectly, but without fear. For someone fighting a silent battle, that was a victory. The next morning arrived softly, almost shyly, as if the world wasn't sure how to approach her after yesterday. Emily woke up with traces of exhaustion still clinging to her bones. But there was something else too, a quiet strength, fragile but present. She lay in bed for a moment, feeling the cool air drifting through the slightly open window. Her blanket was wrapped tightly around her, but her heart felt a little less barricaded. A new kind of morning. For the first time in weeks, Emily didn't reach for her phone immediately. Instead, she sat up and opened the curtains. The sunlight wasn't bright, this was Seattle after all, but a thin, soft beam pushed its way through the clouds. Emily stood there, barefoot, letting the pale golden light touch her face. It didn't fix her. It didn't suddenly make everything okay, but it felt like an invitation. An invitation to try. She whispered into the warm silence, "Okay, just today. I'll try." The first breakfast she made for herself. Emily walked to the kitchen. The sticky note from yesterday was still on the fridge. "Eat, please." She touched it gently, almost like touching a memory. Then she opened the fridge and decided to make something simple: toast and scrambled eggs. Her hands trembled slightly as she cooked, but the familiar motions grounded her. Crack the egg, stir, heat the pan. As she cooked, she realized something. She was feeding herself, taking care of herself, even if it hurt, even if it felt heavy. When she sat down to eat, she whispered, "I'm proud of you." It felt strange to say, but not wrong, her walk back into the world. After breakfast, Emily stood by the door, debating. The outside world still scared her. People, noise, expectations. What if she had another panic attack? What if she couldn't breathe again? Her hand hovered over the doorknob. Her heart pounded. "You can do this," she whispered. "Just one step." She opened the door. The hallway smelled faintly of laundry detergent from a neighbor's apartment. It grounded her. She rode the elevator down. Her reflection on the metal walls looked tired, but not lost. Outside, the air was cool and crisp. Seattle was still wet from last night's rain, the pavement shining like glass. Emily began walking slowly, hugging her sweater around her body. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. The bookstore on Pine Street. She didn't plan to go inside, but her feet led her there, the small bookstore on Pine Street where she used to sit for hours, letting the smell of paper and old stories calm her. When she stepped in, a bell chimed softly. The place looked exactly the same. Rows of wooden shelves, soft yellow lights, the hum of quiet people flipping pages. Emily ran her fingers along the spines of books, feeling the comfort of stories waiting to be read. She picked up a poetry book and opened it randomly. The line she landed on read, "Sometimes the smallest light keeps the darkest night alive." Her heart tightened. She closed the book gently, like closing a wound. A familiar voice. As she turned to leave, someone called her name. "Emily?" She froze. Her pulse quickened. It was Daniel, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. He looked surprised, then relieved. "Hey, I didn't expect to see you here." She looked down, suddenly shy. "I needed to get out of the apartment, just for a bit." Daniel smiled in that warm, patient way he always did. "I'm really glad you came out." He handed her one of the coffees. "For me?" she asked softly. "I figured you'd show up here eventually," he said with a small laugh. "I know this place means something to you." Her chest tightened, not with pain but something softer, something she didn't want to name yet. Sitting together, but not talking too much. They sat near the window, where the soft daylight filtered through rain-stained glass. Emily wrapped her hands around the warm cup. Daniel didn't bombard her with questions. He didn't ask how she was feeling or whether she was doing better. He just sat there, with her, quietly. It was the kind of presence that didn't demand anything. After a few minutes, Emily whispered, "I had a panic attack yesterday, on the street." Daniel nodded gently, not surprised, not panicking. "I know. I was really scared for you." Her eyes watered not from sadness, but from the warmth in his voice. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be." His voice was soft but firm. "You don't have to apologize for having a hard time. Ever." She looked down, trying not to cry. Daniel took a slow breath. "And Emily, you handled it. You're still here. That means something." Her eyes closed. Those words sank into her heart like warm sunlight. A moment she didn't expect. For a brief moment, a very brief one, Emily allowed herself to imagine leaning her head on Daniel's shoulder, just to rest, just to feel safe. She didn't do it, but the thought alone made her chest ache with longing. Longing for comfort, longing for warmth, longing for something she wasn't sure she deserved. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Daniel smiled softly. "I never will." A sunset that didn't hurt. That evening, Emily walked home slowly. The sunset spilled a soft golden light across the city. She hadn't really watched a sunset in months. They always felt too beautiful for her, like she wasn't allowed to enjoy them. But tonight she let herself look. The sky glowed pink and orange, reflected in rain puddles like a mirror to another world. Emily whispered to herself, "I'm still fighting." And for once the words didn't sound like a plea. They sounded like a promise. Before she slept, in bed, Emily opened her journal and wrote, "Today, I let the sun touch my face. I left the apartment. I smiled. I wasn't alone." And then beneath that she added, "Maybe I'm starting to feel again." The thought scared her. Feeling again meant she could hurt again, but it also meant she could hope. As sleep pulled her under, Emily held that fragile hope close. Not tightly, just enough so it wouldn't slip away. The next few days slipped by like soft pages in a fragile book. Emily wasn't better. Not really, but she was moving. Slowly, gently, painfully, honestly. And sometimes, movement was enough. She still woke up tired. She still had mornings where even breathing felt like work. She still had nights where she stared at the ceiling, wondering if she would ever feel whole again. But she also had moments tiny, flickering, almost fragile, where she felt present. And that was new. That was something. The day she watered the plant she almost let die. It was a Tuesday morning when Emily noticed the little plant on her windowsill, the one she had bought months ago during a self-care phase she never truly believed in. Its leaves drooped, brittle, and thin. It looked nearly dead. "Just like me," she whispered, touching one of the leaves. But then something inside her pushed back. "No, not dead," she murmured. "Just thirsty, neglected, tired." She got a glass of water and poured it slowly into the soil. She watched as the earth drank greedily, like it had been waiting for this moment. For the first time, she wondered if healing looked the same way. Slow, quiet, invisible at first. Maybe she wasn't dead inside. Maybe she was just thirsty too. A text from Daniel. Around noon, her phone buzzed. "Daniel, coffee later? Or a walk?" "Only if you feel like it." Emily stared at the message longer than necessary. She felt a warmth rise in her chest, dangerous, gentle, human. After a moment, she typed back, "Emily, a walk. I think I'd like that." Just sending the message made her nervous. Part of her worried he would get tired of showing up. Part of her worried she was starting to depend on him too much. But a bigger part, the quiet, fragile part, felt a little less alone, walking beside someone who knows you're hurting. They met at the corner near Pine Street. Daniel arrived with 2 iced coffees and a warm smile. "You look better today," he said softly. Emily shrugged. "A little, maybe." "A little is good," he replied. "A little is enough." They walked slowly, not rushing anywhere. The city carried the scent of wet pavement and approaching summer. Cars hummed in the distance. A dog barked. Life moved around them. Emily tucked her hair behind her ear, a small motion, but Daniel noticed. He noticed everything. "Can I ask something?" he said after a while. She nodded cautiously. "What do you miss the most? From before all this?" Emily looked down at her shoes. The question was soft, but it hit deep. I miss. Her voice wavered. I miss waking up without fear. I miss feeling excited about small things. I miss reading books and actually remembering what I read. I miss laughing without thinking about how long the feeling will last. Daniel listened intently, never looking away. And, Emily added quietly, I miss the version of me who believed she deserved love. Her voice broke on the last word. Daniel stopped walking. Emily, he whispered. He wanted to reach for her hand. He didn't. Not yet. Not unless she reached first. But his voice was enough warm, steady, full of unspoken care. You still deserve love, he said. Every version of you does. Emily's breath trembled. Her eyes burned. Even this version? She whispered. Especially this version, he answered. A moment she let herself lean. They continued walking until they reached a small viewpoint overlooking the water. The sky stretched wide over Lake Union, pale blue with streaks of silver. Emily sat on a bench. Daniel sat beside her. For a long time, neither spoke. They just watched the water ripple under the cloudy light. Then, almost without thinking, Emily's shoulder drifted toward Daniel, not fully leaning, not fully pulling away, just close. Daniel stayed still, letting her choose how much closeness she needed. After a minute, Emily let her head rest lightly against his shoulder. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't planned. It was instinct, a tired heart remembering where softness lived. Daniel didn't move, didn't breathe too loudly, didn't ruin the moment with words. He just let her rest. And Emily felt something shift in her chest, a loosening, a release, like a knot slowly untying. It wasn't romantic, not yet. It was human, and she needed that more. When she finally spoke her fear out loud. As the sky dimmed into evening, Emily whispered, I'm scared of getting better. Daniel turned slightly, curious but patient. Why? Because, what if I get better, and then lose everything again? Her voice cracked. Her hands shook. What if the darkness comes back? What if I disappoint everyone? What if I disappoint myself? Daniel took a slow breath. Emily, healing isn't a straight line. Sometimes you move forward. Sometimes you fall back. But you're allowed to try again. You're allowed to take breaks. You're allowed to be human. She closed her eyes. His voice felt like warm light. And if you fall again, he added, I'll be there, okay? A tear escaped her eye. Why? She whispered. Why do you care so much? Daniel hesitated, not because he didn't know the answer, but because it might scare her. Because you matter, he said simply, and because I care about you more than you realize. Her heart tightened, soft, painful, beautiful. She wasn't ready to hear the whole truth, and he wasn't ready to say it out loud. But something between them shifted that day, like a door opening quietly inside a dark room, the night she felt the world holding her. When Emily went home, the city lights shimmered through the mist. She felt not happy, but less alone in her sadness, and that mattered. She stood by her window, watching cars move below like little streaks of warmth in the cold night. She whispered, maybe, just maybe, I can keep going. Not because she was strong, not because she was healed, but because someone saw her, someone stayed, and maybe that was enough to try again tomorrow. Before sleep took her, Emily wrote in her journal, Today I felt the world again. A little. Enough. And beneath that, I leaned on someone, and the sky didn't fall. Then for the first time, she let a tiny smile stay on her lips as she drifted into sleep. It wasn't joy. It wasn't love. It wasn't recovery. It was softness. And for someone who had forgotten how to feel, softness was a miracle. The next week arrived quietly. No dramatic changes, no sudden breakthrough, just the slow rhythm of existing. And somehow, that was enough. Emily woke each morning with the familiar heaviness in her limbs, but the weight didn't crush her the way it once did. It lingered, yes, but she could breathe through it now. Some days were harder. Some days she slipped backward. But she was learning something new. That healing wasn't a ladder she had to climb. It was a rhythm she had to live through. And on this particular evening, she felt that rhythm shift again. The day everything felt too loud. By late afternoon, Emily felt it coming. The kind of pressure that started behind her ribs and spread slowly outward. Her thoughts sharpened, crowding each other. Every sound felt too sharp. Every movement felt too fast. Her breath hitched. No, not again. She clenched the sides of her chair, trying to stop her thoughts from unraveling. "You're okay," she whispered. "You're okay. You're okay." But the fear didn't listen. Her heart began racing too fast, too loud, like it was trying to punch its way out of her chest. Her vision blurred. The world tilted. Not quite a panic attack, but dangerously close. Emily grabbed her phone with shaking hands and typed only one word. "Emily, help." She didn't even know who she sent it to until she looked. Daniel. The knock on the door. It took him 6 minutes to get there. 6 minutes Emily spent gripping the edge of her blanket, rocking slightly, trying to breathe through the storm in her mind. When he knocked, she couldn't even stand up. Her body felt like melting wax. The door opened gently. She must have forgotten to lock it. "Emily?" Daniel's voice was soft, frightened in the kind of way someone sounds when they care too deeply. She lifted her eyes. He crossed the room quickly but slowly enough not to startle her, kneeling beside the couch. Hey, it's okay. I'm here." Emily pressed her hands to her chest. I don't know what's wrong with me." Daniel shook his head. "There's nothing wrong with you. You're overwhelmed. I've got you. Just breathe with me." He took slow breaths, loud enough for her to follow. In, out, in, out. Her breathing tangled at first, then slowly settled into the same rhythm. Tears slid down her cheeks, quiet, embarrassed, painful. "I hate this," she whispered. "I hate feeling this way." Daniel brushed a strand of hair from her face, gentle as a sigh. "I know, but you're not alone in it. Not tonight." Emily closed her eyes and leaned toward him, not collapsing, not breaking, just seeking warmth like a flickering flame leaning into the wind. Daniel caught her before she could fall, and he held her, carefully, as if she were something breakable but worth saving. After the storm. An hour passed before Emily could speak again. She pulled away slightly, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Daniel shook his head, frustrated in the softest way. "Emily, don't apologize for being human. You called me. That means you didn't want to disappear into the darkness alone. That matters." She swallowed hard. "I didn't know who else to call." His eyes softened. "You called the right person." Emily looked down, her voice barely a breath. "Why do you care so much?" Daniel hesitated, just for a second. Then he answered quietly, truthfully. "Because you matter to me, more than you think." Her heart shivered. Not from fear, from the unfamiliar warmth blooming beneath her skin. Tea and silence. Daniel made tea in her kitchen, moving quietly, respectfully, like someone who had been in the space enough times to understand its silence. Emily sat wrapped in her blanket, her breathing steadier now. He returned with 2 cups and sat beside her. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of understanding, full of everything unspoken. Emily sipped the tea slowly. The warmth spread through her chest, easing the leftover tremors. And for the first time in a panic-filled evening, she whispered, "Thank you for coming." Daniel looked at her gently. "I always will." Something soft, something dangerous. At some point, Emily leaned her head on his shoulder again. This time, not out of fear or exhaustion, but because she wanted to. A choice. A small one, but a choice nonetheless. Daniel didn't move, didn't tense, didn't expect anything. He just let her be there, close, safe, warm. Emily felt something shift inside her. A door opening, a possibility forming. She wasn't ready to name it. She wasn't ready to feel everything it implied. But her heart remembered something tonight. Something soft, something dangerous, something beautifully human. She didn't have to fight alone. Before sleep found her, Daniel eventually stood to leave. "Text me if you need anything," he said softly. "Even if it's 3 a.m., Emily nodded, eyes tired but clearer. When he reached the door, she called out quietly, "Daniel?" He turned. "Thank you. For staying. For caring." He smiled in a way that almost hurt to look at, gentle, sincere, a little sad. "Get some rest, Emily." When he left, the apartment didn't feel as cold. Emily walked to her bed and lay down slowly, her body still trembling faintly but calmer. Before she closed her eyes, she whispered, "I survived today." Then softer, "Because someone held the pieces together with me." And at last sleep took her, not peacefully, but safely. A small victory, a fragile one, but real. The following days arrived softly, wrapped in a fog that felt both comforting and heavy. Emily woke each morning unsure of which version of herself she would meet, the one who could breathe easily, or the one who had to fight for every inhale. Healing was like that, unpredictable, uneven, painfully human. But every morning, she tried. She opened the curtains, she made tea, she washed her face, even when her reflection scared her. Some days she succeeded, some days she merely survived. Either way, she kept moving. The day hope became sharp, instead of gentle. It was Thursday afternoon when Emily felt it first, a strange ache beneath her ribs, a tightness that wasn't panic, but something more complicated. She realized it as she sat at her desk, trying to answer work emails. She was trying, she was doing better, she was breathing again. So why? Why did it hurt? Hope. That was why. Hope hurt too. Because what if she grabbed it and lost it? What if she built a life again, only to watch it crumble? What if she let Daniel close, and he realized she wasn't worth staying for? Her hands trembled over the keyboard. Her thoughts spiraled softly, quietly, like a storm forming far offshore. What if I'm not enough? She whispered into the empty room. When Daniel noticed before she told him. That evening, Daniel knocked on her door. No reason, no warning, just a quiet intuition. He carried 2 cups of hot chocolate. When she opened the door, his smile faded. "Emily, what's wrong?" She looked down at her socks, not trusting her voice. "Nothing. It's stupid. I'm just tired." Daniel shook his head gently, stepping closer. "If it was nothing, you wouldn't look like the sky after a storm." Emily's throat tightened. She sighed, defeated. "I'm scared again. And I hate that I'm scared even on good days. I feel like hope is a knife and I'm holding the blade." Daniel's eyes softened with a sadness she didn't expect. "Hope does hurt," he whispered. "It's the price of wanting something better." Emily blinked slow, trembling. "Nobody ever told me that. Because nobody wants to admit it," Daniel said. "But it's true. Growing hurts. Healing hurts. Even happiness hurts. Sometimes." Emily gripped the edge of her sweater. "I don't want to lose the progress I made." "You won't," he said gently. "And even if you fall, I'll help you up again." Her heart shivered. Soft, warm, dangerous. A walk through the cold evening air. They walked down the quiet street toward the waterfront. The night smelled like sea salt and cold wind. Lights shimmered across the surface of the water, blurring softly like distant memories. Emily hugged her arms around herself. Daniel walked beside her, not touching, not pushing, just matching her pace. Like always. After a while, she whispered, "I don't know how to let myself be happy." Daniel looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Then let me teach you slowly," he said. "No pressure, no rushing. Just step by step." A slow breath escaped her lips. "That sounds impossible," she murmured. "It isn't," he replied. "It just requires someone to walk with you." She glanced at him. "And you're willing to be that person?" Daniel hesitated only for a heartbeat. "Emily, I'm already walking with you." Her chest tightened. Her steps faltered. She looked away before the emotion swallowed her whole, a moment she didn't expect to break her. As they sat on a bench facing the water, Emily whispered, "Daniel, what if I never get rid of this darkness?" He exhaled slowly, as if the question hurt him too. "Then I'll sit in the dark with you," he said. "Every time, for as long as you need." Her breath caught. Her eyes filled before she could stop them. "I don't deserve that." Daniel turned toward her fully now. "Don't say that. Don't ever say that." "But it's true," she whispered. "I'm a mess. I'm broken. You're human," he interrupted softly. "And you're trying, and that makes you more than enough." Her tears fell freely. Not the quiet tears from loneliness, but tears pulled from a place inside her that had forgotten tenderness. Daniel didn't touch her. He just let her cry, let her fall apart softly, let her feel without shame. A confession that wasn't quite love, but close. When she finally could speak again, she whispered, "I'm scared of needing you." Daniel swallowed, his voice low. "I know. What if you leave?" "What if I don't?" he said. Emily shook her head. Her hair brushed her cheeks in the cold wind. "You can't promise that." "No," Daniel agreed softly. "I can't promise forever. But I can promise right now. And right now, I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere." It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't a confession. But it was something close. Something dangerous. Something she wasn't ready to name. And yet, she let it sit between them, glowing like a faint ember in the dark. A silent moment that meant everything. They sat side by side, listening to the water. Emily leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. This time, it didn't feel accidental. It didn't feel desperate. It felt like trust, like choosing softness over fear, like letting herself exist without apology. Daniel exhaled slowly, the warmth of his breath mixing with the cold night air. He whispered, "You're doing better than you think." Emily closed her eyes. "For tonight, I believe you." Before sleep took her. Back home, Emily lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She replayed Daniel's words, his voice, the way he sat with her in the cold evening, the way he breathed with her when her thoughts spiraled, and somewhere in her chest, something delicate moved, a tremor, a flicker, a fragile hope. She opened her journal and wrote, "Hope hurts, but maybe that means I'm healing." And beneath that, Daniel stayed again, and I'm terrified of what that means. For the first time that night, she didn't cry from sadness. She cried because she finally realized she was still capable of feeling deeply, even if it hurt, even if it scared her, even if the ending might break her heart. With tears drying slowly on her cheeks, Emily whispered into the darkness, "I'm still here." And the darkness, for once, felt less lonely. The next few days were a blur of small victories and quiet collapses. Emily woke earlier than usual. She made tea instead of skipping breakfast. She opened the curtains every morning, even when the sky was too heavy to let light in. But beneath all of that, beneath the healing, beneath the progress, there was something new growing inside her. Something warm. Something terrifying. Something shaped like Daniel. The day she started avoiding him. Not because she disliked him, not because he'd done anything wrong, but because she was starting to care, and caring felt like stepping into fire. Every time she saw his name on her phone, her heartbeat sped up. Every time he knocked on her door, she straightened her sweater, checking her reflection in the microwave. Every time he smiled at her, that soft, gentle smile, her insides filled with a warmth she couldn't explain. She wasn't ready. Not for love, not for hope, not for losing him if she let herself get attached. So she avoided him. She didn't respond to a message, then 2, then 3. Not because she didn't want him near, but because she wanted him so much it frightened her. Daniel knocks, anyway. On the 4th day, there was a quiet knock on her door. Emily froze. Her heart stumbled painfully. She considered pretending she wasn't home, staying silent, staying safe. But Daniel's voice came through the door. "Emily, it's me. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. I just want to know you're okay." Emily closed her eyes. His concern cracked something in her. She opened the door slowly. Daniel looked tired, worried in the kind of way someone worries when they're trying not to intrude. "Hey," he said softly. "Hi," she whispered. "You disappeared," he said gently. "I got scared." Emily's face flushed with guilt. "I'm sorry. I needed space." He nodded, but his eyes searched hers. "Space because you're struggling? Or space because of me?" Emily looked down at the floor. She didn't answer, and that silence told Daniel everything. The words she didn't want to say. Daniel stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Emily, if I'm making things worse, you can tell me. I'll give you space. I don't want to overwhelm you." His voice hurt her, not because it was harsh, but because it was kind. "I'm not avoiding you because you overwhelm me," she whispered. He waited. She swallowed. Her next words came out small and trembling. "I'm avoiding you because I care." Daniel froze. Emily squeezed her hands together, her voice cracking. "I care too much, and I'm not ready. I'm scared of depending on you. I'm scared of wanting you to stay. I'm scared that if I let you in, really in, you'll see how broken I am, and leave anyway." Daniel stepped forward slowly, like approaching something fragile. "Emily, look at me." She lifted her eyes. His voice softened in a way that made her chest ache. "I already see your broken pieces, and I'm still here." Her breath caught, a sharp, painful inhale. She shook her head quickly. "You don't understand. I'm not stable. I'm not whole. You're human," Daniel whispered. "And you don't have to be whole for someone to care about you." Emily bit her lip, shaking again. Not from fear, but from wanting. Wanting the warmth he offered. Wanting the safety she felt near him. Wanting something that might destroy her if she wasn't careful. A touch that shouldn't have happened. Daniel reached out, slow, soft, asking, not taking. He brushed a tear from her cheek with the back of his fingers. Emily shivered, the kind of shiver that felt like waking up after a long, cold winter. She whispered, "Don't be gentle with me unless you mean it." Daniel's breath caught. "I do," he said quietly. "You know I do." Emily closed her eyes, fighting tears. "I'm scared of hurting you." "You won't," he murmured. "And even if you do, I choose to be here." Her heart broke a little at those words. Broke open, not apart. The almost confession. They sat on the couch, close but not touching. Emily's hands trembled. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "I think I feel something for you." Daniel exhaled slowly, deeply. She felt the air shift, warm, charged, fragile. He didn't move closer. He didn't rush. He didn't let his emotions burst through. Instead, he whispered, "I know." Emily's eyes widened. He smiled sadly. "I've known for a while, but I didn't want to push you. I wanted you to feel safe, not pressured." Tears filled her eyes. "But I'm not ready," she said. Her voice broke. "I know," he whispered again. "And I'm not asking you to be." He placed a hand over his chest. "Just let me be here, that's all." Her tears fell silent, soft, necessary, and Daniel pulled her gently into an embrace. Not romantic, not expectant, not demanding, just human. Emily melted into him, burying her face into his shoulder, feeling warmth she'd forgotten existed. For the first time in years, she let herself be held without apology. The night she let herself want something. Later, as she lay in bed, she touched the place on her cheek, where Daniel's fingers had brushed her skin. It tingled, it burned, it scared her. But it also filled her with something fragile and dangerous. Desire for a future she wasn't sure she deserved. She whispered into the dark, "I care about him." Then softer, "And that terrifies me." She closed her eyes, knowing something had shifted inside her. Something irreversible. Not love. Not yet. But the beginning of something that could save her, or break her completely. And in her fragile heart, she suspected it might do both. The next week arrived with a strange quietness, the kind of calm that made Emily uneasy, like the stillness before a storm she didn't know how to prepare for. She had good days, and she had days where she felt like she had slipped back 2 months. Healing was winding, unpredictable, cruelly gentle. But underneath it all, something new lived inside her now. Something warm and dangerous. She cared for Daniel, more than she wanted to admit, more than she knew how to handle. And that made her heart softer, and her fear sharper. The day she pushed him away again. It began with something small. An email from work. A mistake she didn't notice. Her manager's frustrated reply. Her thoughts spiraled fast. "I'm failing. I'm useless. I'm a burden. I ruin everything." By afternoon, her chest felt tight, her hands cold, her breath shallow. When Daniel messaged her, "Daniel, dinner tonight? I made something warm." Emily stared at the screen. She typed, "Emily, I can't. I just can't today," he replied instantly. "Daniel, do you want me to come over?" She froze. Her heart whispered yes. Her fear screamed no. "Emily, no, please don't." She hit send, then threw her phone aside like it had burned her. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, her thoughts sharper. "I can't need him this much," she whispered. "I can't depend on him. He'll leave if I do." She curled into herself until her body felt like a tight knot of fear and regret. When Daniel came anyway, that evening, Daniel knocked on her door. Not loud, not demanding, just soft, concerned. "Emily, can I come in?" Her eyes filled instantly. She didn't answer, didn't move, didn't breathe properly. Daniel waited, longer than anyone else would. Finally, he whispered, "I'm not here to fix you. I'm here because you don't have to be alone." The words cracked something inside her. Emily opened the door a few inches. Daniel stood in the hallway holding a container of soup and wearing that same gentle, heartbreaking expression. The kind that made her want to break down and melt into his arms. "You said not to come," he said softly. "I know. But I couldn't just sit at home wondering if you were okay." She stepped aside slowly. She didn't hug him, but she wanted to. God, she wanted to. The conversation she didn't want to have. They sat on the couch. Emily wrapped herself in her blanket. Daniel kept a respectful distance. The silence was heavy, not awkward, but full of everything she didn't know how to say. Finally, Emily whispered, "I'm scared, Daniel." He nodded, eyes soft. "Of what?" "Of this." She motioned between them. "Of how much you mean to me. Of how much I want you here. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to depend on you and then watch you walk away." Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, not in anger, but in pain. "Emily, I'm not going anywhere. You don't know that," she said, voice cracking. "People leave. People always leave." Daniel inhaled slowly. "That's true," he admitted softly. "But I haven't left. And I'm not leaving today." Emily's breath trembled. "But what if one day I'm too heavy for you?" Daniel shook his head sharply. "You're not weight. You're a person. Tired," Emily whispered. "Broken. Hurting. Needy." Daniel reached out slow, careful, and touched her hand. "If you're needy, then let me need you too." Her heart twisted painfully. She blinked fast, tears slipping down. "I don't know how to let myself be loved." "I know," Daniel whispered. "And I'm not asking you to rush. Just let me stand beside you." The night the darkness returned. Later that night, after Daniel left, Emily sat at her window. The darkness felt thicker, heavier, like something old had resurfaced. Her chest tightened out of nowhere, her vision blurred. Her thoughts began to spiral again. "Not again," she whispered. "Please, not again." The panic attack hit fast and hard. Her hands shook violently, her breath fractured. Her body curled in on itself. Tears streamed down as she pressed her palms to her chest, trying to hold herself together. I can't do this. I thought I was getting better. Why is this happening again? Why? She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing into her hands. She didn't call Daniel this time. She didn't want to be saved. She didn't want to be seen like this. She just wanted the storm to stop. Her breath came in sharp, broken gasps. Her mind screamed, "Maybe I'm never going to get better. Maybe I'm just broken. Maybe I ruin everything." She shook until her body gave out, the notebook she wrote in with shaking hands. When the panic finally loosened its grip, Emily dragged herself to the bed and reached for her journal. Her hands trembled violently as she wrote, "I slipped tonight. I fell hard. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I wanted to call him, but I'm scared I'll destroy everything if I keep needing him." A tear dropped onto the page. She continued, "I don't know if I deserve him. I don't know if I deserve anyone. I don't know if I deserve peace." More tears, more shaking. Then the final line, "If I break, I just hope he doesn't break with me." She closed the notebook and held it to her chest like a lifeline. Before she finally slept, Emily curled deep under her blankets, her body exhausted, her heart hurting, her mind quiet only because it had run out of strength. She whispered into the dark, "I'm scared of tomorrow." A pause, then softer, "But I'll open my eyes anyway." And with that fragile promise, she drifted into a restless sleep, the kind that felt like floating between survival and surrender. Emily woke with swollen eyes, a pounding heart, and the residue of last night's panic clinging to her like smoke. For a moment, she lay still, staring at the ceiling. She expected the heaviness to suffocate her. She expected the hopelessness to pull her back under. But something strange happened. She breathed, slowly, shakily, but she breathed, and the breath didn't break her. The morning light she didn't expect. Emily pushed herself upright, legs trembling as if she'd run a marathon the night before. She opened the curtains. Seattle, for the first time in weeks, wasn't gray. A soft golden light spilled into her apartment, gentle, warm, almost forgiving. Emily closed her eyes and let the sun touch her face. "I'm still here," she whispered. Not as a question, not as a plea, as a truth, the decision to try again. She made tea. She placed her trembling hands around the warm cup. She breathed in the steam, letting her body remember calmness. Then, she reached for her phone. Her chest tightened with fear, but she pushed through it. She typed, "Emily, Daniel, can you come over?" A single tear slid down her cheek, not from sadness but from courage. When he saw her, Daniel arrived faster than she expected. He didn't knock softly this time. He knocked like someone who'd spent the entire night worrying. When Emily opened the door, he froze. Her eyes were red, her face tired, her hands shaking. "Emily." His voice cracked. "What happened?" She stepped aside, letting him in. But instead of collapsing into him, instead of letting him carry her weight, she stood in front of him, spine trembling but straight, breath uneven but hers. I had a bad night, she whispered. A really bad one. Daniel's eyes softened with both fear and relief. You could have called, he murmured. I know, Emily said. Her voice broke in the gentlest way. But I needed to face it, just once, by myself, to prove that I could. Daniel's breath caught. And did you? Emily swallowed. Yes, barely, but yes. He stepped closer. So why did you call me this morning? Emily looked up at him, really looked, because choosing to fight alone doesn't mean I want to live alone. Because I'm learning that strength isn't the absence of need. Because, her voice trembled, I want you here, not to save me, just here. Daniel's expression melted into something warm, tender, aching. I'm here, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. The moment she finally let love in, he reached out, slowly, carefully, just like he always did, and touched her cheek. Emily didn't flinch this time. Instead, she leaned into his palm, closing her eyes. I'm scared, she whispered. Daniel brushed a tear from her skin. I know, he said softly. I am too. Emily's eyes opened, shimmering. But I want this, she whispered. I want us. Even if it's complicated, even if I'm still healing, even if I fall sometimes. Daniel's voice was barely a breath. Then fall. I'll be here to sit with you in the dark and walk with you back into the light. Emily let out a shaky exhale, the kind that sounded like relief. Then, in a moment gentle as sunrise, Daniel held her. Not tightly, not desperately, but with the kind of love that felt like safety. And Emily, for the first time, let herself believe she deserved it. A future that didn't scare her anymore. Weeks passed. Emily still had hard days. Days where breathing hurt. Days where she disappeared into silence. Days where old wounds reopened. But she didn't hide anymore. She didn't carry the weight alone. Daniel walked beside her. Not ahead, not behind, beside. And slowly, softly, the darkness inside her loosened its grip. Not gone, not defeated, but no longer winning. Emily began reading again, laughing again, watering her plant every morning, writing in her journal without fear of what she might find. And one evening, as she sat with Daniel on the rooftop, watching the Seattle skyline glow below them, she whispered, I don't know where my life is going yet, but I think I want to see it. Daniel smiled, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. I'll be right here, he said, however long it takes. Emily looked up at the sky, soft purple, streaked with gold, and for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like an invitation. The final line she wrote in her journal. That night, Emily opened her journal and wrote, Healing didn't save me, but choosing to stay alive did. Then she added, and choosing to let myself be loved, that changed everything. She closed the notebook softly, turned off the lamp, and slipped under the blankets, safe, warm, hopeful. Before